So we will learn how to complete the square of a quadratic equation by deriving the quadratic formula. So we have the quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b, and c are just real coefficients, with a restriction that a is not 0, because if a is 0, then this squared term will disappear, and when it disappears, it means this equation doesn't have an x squared term and it ceases to be a quadratic equation. So how do we complete the square? So the first thing, we make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1, so we divide throughout by a. So in other words, we can say ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, and I'll multiply this by 1 over a. So if I multiply by 1 over a, I'm going to have x squared plus b over a x plus c over a is equal to 0 over a, which is just 0. So at this stage now, the next thing to do is to look at the coefficient of x. So the rule says we take half of the coefficient of x, which is b over a, meaning we multiply by b over a, and then we're going to have b over 2a. So this b over 2a is what we are going to work with, and we are going to take the square of this quantity and add to both sides of the equation. So if we were to say x squared plus b over a x is equal to, so I'll take this constant the other side, so we're going to have minus c over a, and then the square of b over 2a, we will add it to both sides of this equation. If we do that, we are going to have x squared plus b over a x, so add it at the end of the expression on the left. So we're going to add the square of that quantity, which is b over 2a squared, and this will be equal to minus c over a plus the same quantity b over 2a squared. So by doing so, we don't change the meaning of the previous equation from this one, since we are just adding 0 in the sense that these two terms can actually cancel each other, but we need them to do the completing the square. So we now look at this part here and factor out. So how we factorize? The easiest way, you look at the squared term that is on the beginning here and take its root. So we're going to say open brackets, we'll take its root, and we're going to say the square root of x squared is x plus the square root of this quantity is the expression that we have inside, which is b over 2a, and we square. So you realize that when we expand this, we'll get this, but we want the compressed form. So we'll say this is equal to, we have minus c over a plus, so we will expand this and we'll have b squared over 4a squared. Okay, so at this stage we maintain the left hand side the way it is. So we have x plus b over 2a squared is equal to, so we're going to make this a single fraction. So the common denominator is 4a squared, since a can go into a squared. A into 4a squared, that's 4a. 4a times minus c, we're going to have minus 4ac. So we have minus 4ac, then we add 4a squared into itself, it's 1. 1 times b squared, we're going to have b squared. From there, we will say this is x plus b over 2a squared is equal to, I can flip this so that it looks a bit familiar. So we have b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Now I can take the square root on both sides. So if I take the square root, I'm going to have x plus b over 2a is equal to, if I'm taking the root here, I'll have plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. And because if I have a over b and I'm finding the square root, this is the same as the square root of a over the square root of b. So we shall distribute the square root to this fraction here. So I'm going to say this is x. I can take this the other side since I'm solving for x. It is equal to, I'm going to have minus b over 2a, then it will be plus or minus, so distributing the square root, I'll have the square root on top of b squared minus 4ac over the square root of 4a squared. So at this stage it's almost done. We'll say x is equal to minus b over 2a plus or minus. I cannot do anything with the square root on top, so I'll just write it the way it is, which is b squared minus 4ac over, but I can do something with the square root in the denominator. The square root of 4 is 2, square root of a squared is a. So now I'll just combine these two fractions. So x will be equal to, so the common denominator there is 2a, so I'll write 2a into itself, it's 1. 1 times negative b, it's minus b. So I'll have plus or minus 2a into itself, it's 1. 1 times this numerator, it's the numerator itself, which is the square root of b squared minus 4ac. So here we have our quadratic formula derived using completing the square method.